Good afternoon, Guernsey County. 2013 is gone and 2014 is here. We are absolutely excited about what 2014 will bring Guernsey County Parents United, as well as the Parental Alienation Awareness Organization. But there are many things, though, that are still bothering me. For the past 4 years, there's a case that has been just as old as about mine that has me perplexed. And I need the public to understand the seriousness of this matter. I need the public to understand that child abuse needs to be taken seriously. Folks, I want to share a case with you that is very near and dear to my heart. The Ronnie Dennis case. This case has perplexed me from the beginning. I've sat with the family through attorney meetings. I've looked at motions. I've tried to pass motions on to friends of mine that are judges, friends of mine that are lawyers, and they also are very perplexed by what they have seen. Things just don't make any sense. Ronnie Dennis was divorced in 2009. And basically, to make a long story short, he was accused of abuse. DNA was found in a little girl's panties, but the DNA was later discovered to not be his. Now, here's the question, Guernsey County. Why would a prosecutor sit on DNA if it belongs to somebody and it's not the father's, it's not from the father's side of the family, because the genetics, basically the DNA, proved that it wasn't? Why would a prosecutor want to continue to sit on evidence that proves a man is innocent? Matter of fact, the prosecutor even sent a letter stating to him that he was innocent, that the DNA basically came back negative. Then here's my question, Mr. Prosecutor. Whose DNA is it? There are other cases that have perplexed me too. I won't share names of other cases, but one particular case that has floored me is a case where a child was abused, but because of who the father knows and who the father has affiliations with, and yet I continue to follow the paper trail to this very day, and yet every single element of the case screams conflict to an extreme level. The individual went so far to file a grievance, and it was ignored by Judge Moorhead. Why would you ignore a grievance against any guardian ad litem? According to Rule 48, that's exactly what these people are supposed to do. I also know that Judge Elwood ignored Rule 48 in another case where a complaint was filed against a guardian ad litem by the name of Kleinsmith, and yet nothing was done. Guernsey County, that guardian ad litem knew facts about the Ronnie Dennis case, and yet she ignored them. But my question is, do you know why? I do. This goes out to Magistrate Hollins. This goes out to the Kleinsmith. There was a guardian ad litem on this case. I know for a fact that you were told crystal clear, if that's a word there, who actually did this to the Dennis girl. And yet, it never came up. The reports never came out. Ms. Kleinsmith, who are you really protecting? I will tell you this. If you and Ms. Hollins don't get it right, and Mr. Padden, you don't do the right thing, there will be a public outcry like you have never seen before. I promise you that. This case has perplexed me because of the fact that I don't understand how Children's Services can unsubstantiate anything against the father, and yet the father still can't see his children. In fact, Marshall Hollins went so far to send the children to counseling, even though the father had never abused them, at least with the DNA evidence, which is pretty huge. Here's the thing. Mrs. Hollins probably should have pushed the prosecutor to find out who the DNA belonged to. Or perhaps Children's Services should have pushed the issue to find out who the DNA belongs to. But nobody did that.
Nobody came forward to say, we want to know who did this to that child. Yet every day I see cases where there are incidents of basically 19, 20, 21-year-olds having underage sex with somebody that's 15, 14, 16. And a lot of times in those cases, the parents are okay with the relationship. But when they break up, things change. And I know some of you out there that have been in those kind of situations. Or perhaps they've lied about their age. But here is a case where this was somebody who was older, who probably did something to this young girl, and yet the prosecutor continues to sit back on it. Let me ask you this, Mr. Prosecutor. Are you not doing anything because of the fact that you once represented this mother, which is a conflict of interest? You should have never been involved in this case. You should have taken that DNA, and you should have taken any kind of prosecution or even tentative prosecution against the father to another county. But yet, you didn't. My question is why? Guernsey County has conflicts a lot, and yet they ignore the conflicts of interest that exist. Folks, if you really want change in Guernsey County, you need to start speaking up for yourselves. You need to start realizing that when the system is doing wrong and the system is failing to truly protect the best interest of children, you need to speak up. You need to speak out. You need to be loud and clear about these kinds of issues. And yet I've spoken with many of you who don't want to talk because you have an ongoing case. Folks, here's the reality. Your ongoing case may help many people. Last night, a video of my daughter being reunified with me. She came to Guernsey County and she spoke of what she encountered going through as far as parental alienation. I keep telling Ronnie Dennis, your case is another one just like mine. False allegations, filled with lies or partial lies, trying to use anything that they can to manipulate. What about the mother? What about the protective order, where the mother followed out to the father's residence? She went out there trying to cause trouble, and yet Marcia decides to put a double protective order in place, and the case was dismissed. Might it be that the case was dismissed because in the deposition, the girl made it very clear, the woman made it very clear that she was basically asked to rewrite it because she was advised to rewrite it and to word it differently. Yes, and I'm going to say it now. She was guided by Marcia Hollins and Haven of Hope. Those are my words. Those are words from court documents that prove that the mother was sitting there saying that the things that she had said was because she basically was encouraged to rewrite it. You know, I'm going to make this loud and clear. I love organizations that do the right things at the right times for all the right people. But I will not tolerate agencies and organizations that are using their power or who they are or their positions to sit there and manipulate hard, core, clear, and convincing evidence. If you think for 1 second that we at Guernsey County Parents United are not going to do anything, everything that we possibly can to make it known that there are issues here, you're wrong. Listen, I will applaud you when you do right. But if you think for 1 second that we're just going to sit back and allow you to ruin children's lives, all because of personal gain or because I went to school with her or I was friends with her. I'll give you another example. What about a person who is a counselor of a child and she's counseling the child and she went to school with the father? Can she have an unbiased opinion as to what needs to occur and what is in the best interest of the child? Probably not, because she's tainted already, because she had a relationship with the father. They went to school together, they might have been on teams together, or in choir together, whatever it might be. And yet, that is ignored as well. Guernsey County, do me a favor. Get your head out of your butts and start doing what's best for the children. Because I can assure you, in 2014, if that courthouse doesn't start doing what's right for children, and children's services doesn't start doing what's right for children, and these counseling agencies don't start doing what's right for children, I'm going to come at you hard and heavy. You know, I have information that I have passed on to other organizations, and I have passed them on to other officials within the state of Ohio, because I feel that they need to know exactly what is going on here. I'm not saying any of this to threaten people. All I'm trying to say is do what's right. Do what's right. Lawyers, quit trying to throw fuel on the fire and getting parents angry and bitter at each other so that you can continue to drag a case out so that you can make money. Push for mediation. Push for the two parties to sit down and try and work things out. You know, it was funny. My ex and I actually did that. But she never turned the paperwork into the court. She later told the court that I forced her to sign it. Yet all four of my children were sitting there, and we all had a family meeting about what was best. And I went out onto the porch with her, and she's crying. She puts her head on his shoulder and says, "Do you think we're doing what's right?" To my ex-wife, I say, absolutely. We were doing what's right because we made the children our focus. We both got 50-50 time. We both were going to invest in their medical lives. I still have the paper. I still have the shared parenting agreement. But she never turned it into the court. I notarized it, did everything I was supposed to do. It was sent through her friend's work email. And yet, it got signed and got sent in, and yet it didn't matter that any of that stuff, because I was accused of abuse. Or abusing the children, excuse me. But here's the thing. Folks, I don't want this video to be about me, but I do want it to be an educational tool. Because the reality is, false allegations are occurring every day within our county. And yet, nobody is punished. There's no account for people who go to Children's Services and lie about another person. Children's Services just goes through their investigation, or doesn't, and will consider it unsubstantiated. But that goes on your record. These kinds of things get reported. These kind of things mark your life because somebody can sit there and lie about you and make false allegations. Here's what I can tell you. In the Ronnie Dennis case, Children's Services found the father not guilty of anything, no information, unsubstantiated. In fact, it was told to us in our organization that the girls actually said the father didn't do anything to them, and that it was a family member on the other side. Why did the guardian ad litem ignore this? Why did the guardian ad litem let it go? A person came in who's a very credible person who testifies in court all the time, went up there and made it known what she was told. And yet, the guardian ad litem never included that in the report. The guardian ad litem never sat down and even talked with the father about this and even tried to probe him or even saw the girls with the father. That's not Rule 48 procedure. And yet, the magistrate allowed this to continue because she had a personal relationship with the guardian ad litem? Sure, they went to church together. They were friends. And we just let it go. Why? January 10th, a great movie is coming out. Go to divorcecorp.com. It gives you a look at what the divorce industry is all about and the kinds of decisions that are made with your life. Folks, I have gotten to know this family extremely well. And there's nothing that excites me more than to try and help the Dennis family and to pass these paperwork on to some top-notch people. And I can remember one of them sitting there and said, "Why didn't your attorney file this?" That attorney has yet to answer the Dennis question. My question is the same thing. It's an easy motion to file. You knew your client was innocent. You had proof your client was innocent. But yet you can't go in that courtroom and fight for him and protect his rights and protect the children? That makes you just as guilty. I'm sorry, sir, but that's just reality. There is children out there who the father, the DNA doesn't belong to him, but that DNA belongs to somebody. And all of you, Magistrate Hollins, the lawyers, the prosecutor, the guardian ad litem, and everybody's just going to sit back and ignore that? I want this video to start being a public outcry. People, if you're fed up with the government in this county, if you're fed up with the injustices that are done, not only to parents or to you, but to, more importantly than that, your children, you better start stepping up and you better start speaking out. Otherwise, it's just going to get worse. Is that what we want for our children? Do we want parental alienation to occur? Do we want our children, my son, to have to go through the same thing that I went through because his wife later decides, or my daughter's husband decides to divorce her and falsely accuse her of something? Enough is enough. This is why legislation is critical. This is why it's important to make your voices heard loud and clear. I will say this. Guernsey County Parents United is holding some extremely valuable documents. Those documents will prove, and I'm saying it publicly, that Magistrate Hollins may have been, in fact, involved in corruption in regards to the Dennis case. You can't deny the evidence. If you say that you can, then what about the evidence against the father, which is none? And yet, Magistrate Hollins, you continue to basically say that the father can't see the child? Why? Why? Here's my question. Are you going to answer the question who the DNA belongs to? Are you going to push the prosecutor to do what's right? From my understanding, Ms. Hollins plans on running for judge over my dead body. If you truly started doing what was right, maybe you'd have a leg to stand on. And I'm going to say it publicly. I don't care. I've got the facts. This father has the facts. The prosecutor's sitting on a letter that says, no, Dad's innocent. We're not pursuing any criminal charges. But yet, they're going to come into his house because the mother made an accusation that there was pornography on the computer, and yet there was nothing. Shouldn't that be a red flag to the courts and to the system? That there's something wrong with this picture? That maybe the mother lied? Not only about that, but about everything else as well. Here's the thing. In criminal cases, we see that when a person takes the stand and we're able to prove that they're not credible, their testimony is basically dismissed. But yet in family court, you're not given that option. The judge just sits there and decides, or the magistrate who has absolutely no power except the power given to her by the judge, who later signs off on her rulings, whether they're right or wrong, he doesn't seem to care. Judge Elwood, you're just as guilty as Magistrate Hollins because you sign off on all these issues. You know what? You're guilty of not getting the DNA of the actual perpetrator and finding out who it belongs to. Well, we have to have justifiable cause. Here's justifiable cause. The child's still exposed to the perpetrator. How's that for justifiable? Guernsey County, will you join me? Will you join me in 2014 to putting a smackdown on corruption? Will you join me in 2014 to put a smackdown on the injustices that are being done to our children? There are many children out there whose lives have been affected by this system. Are you just going to sit back and do nothing about it? please, please, please step up. Speak out. Do what's right. Do what's best for the children. Because that's what truly matters. And that's what making a difference is all about. I pray that this 20-minute video encouraged you and causes you to think. There'll be more videos in the next day or two to challenge the community on other issues as well. God bless and have a great day.